morning, world. If you haven't checked it out yet, check our Tuesday's episode with Dr. Barkey about the whole coronavirus. I think you'll enjoy some of the insights that Dr. Barkey had. But today we have some interesting stories. The further dumbing down of the black community.
Yes.
By academia.
Yes, and how crosswalks are racist.
Yeah. And then are we going to touch on the crucifixion of George Floyd?
The crucifixion of George Floyd.
Yes.
Coming up, I'm Cedric.
And I'm Brian, and this is Cedric and Brian. All right, we are back. And again, if you haven't checked out our Tuesday episode with Dr. Barkey, make sure you check that out. So, Cedric, I know we covered something on our TikTok a while ago with the University of Washington. Yeah, letting black students, kind of giving them a break on their grades so they could go out and protest. Yes. But now you've got a study from Rutgers, or an article from Rutgers, right?
Yeah, the whole Washington. If you haven't seen our TikTok, make sure you follow us on TikTok. We did a humorous thing on the University of Washington and how the black students were going to be graded differently. They're going to modify the grading scale. So with everything going on with the murder of George Floyd and the BLM stuff going on and the protests, that would give the black students time to go out and protest and things like that.
Even though when you look at some of those protests, it seems to be a lot more white people.
All the white kids are out there doing it and things like that. But they should be the ones who get the exception for their grades.
It's all this pandering.
Yes.
And this Rutgers thing just shows more.
Yeah. We made fun of it, but it's getting to the point now where it's like you have to laugh in order to keep from crying because this stuff is just becoming ridiculous now. But anyway, the University of Rutgers, now they're starting to do away with what we call, me and Brian have a discussion about this. I call it the King's English. He calls it proper English, proper grammar. But Rutgers is saying that, I guess he's saying POC, people of color.
Yeah, so it's not just African Americans or black people,
indigenous,
but any, whatever. We talked about this before. POC is such a crazy term because
piece of crap.
Well, to me, it's just like when we weren't supposed to say colored people, but now it's okay to say people of color.
Right.
Anyway.
Right.
I digress.
So anyway, and if you we did a TikTok on this, which I was making fun of, one of our most recent ones. Go back 3 or 4, and we're talking about using. I'll say what it is: Ebonics. Using Ebonics and having that be an okay to speak. Now, here's what I think. It is just a big setup because it's the dumbing down of people of color. Dumbing down because if you allow that to happen in the schools, and in a lot of schools, when you write a paper, they have what's called the MLA format. It's a specific format in which you write a paper. And let's say some of these students want to go on and be a lawyer. And if your briefing has Ebonics or grammar that's not used amongst the American people, you are putting them at a disadvantage. What if you write a thesis paper and it has all that stuff contained in it? Now, and your master's professor can look at this and say, well, where'd you get this? Well, I went to Rutgers, and this is how we do it there. We're laughing at it, but at the same time, it's so sad and so pathetic, and I know people are going to jump on board with it.
Well, I know. Well, it's an extension of affirmative action.
Right.
So, and there was a time for affirmative action, but I don't think in 2020, and this is just an extension of it now because now, I can't speak for Cedric, but he's talked about it before. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good.
It doesn't look good at all. And I put some notes down here. It says if we lower the expectations, we're going to be crippling blacks. And I'm just going to call it. It's a new bigotry. It's the bigotry of low expectations.
Yeah, and I've heard that term before. Yes.
Yeah, and me and Brian, we joke about it a lot because we're friends and stuff. And I always say this comment. Now here I grew up in Los Angeles, and so I had friends from different parts of LA, and then we talked about this with you. I mean, growing up in Surf City, Costa Mesa, you kind of had a lingo, brah, But
we were right next to Newport, dude.
I do, brah. And I was just talking to a good friend of mine from college whose mom just recently passed away, and I don't know what to call it, but we slipped into our college lingo with each other, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's a saying that I use saying I can talk to them in the streets and I can talk to them in the suites. There's a time and a place for everything. When you're hanging out with your boys from high school, from college, and you guys slip into your vernacular and your street talk, that's one thing. But if you can't switch it up or you're not willing to switch it up, you're going to put yourself at a huge disadvantage.
Yeah, my buddy KC, he used to make fun of me because I always used to say dude.
Yes.
But, you know, in a professional setting, I'm not going to say, hey, what's up, dude?
What's up, dude?
I mean, there's just a time. But if I did that in school and
Right.
I was making a presentation, can you imagine if they said, okay, we're not going to grade you down for using that?
Right.
I mean, an acting class maybe, but yeah, if you're, like you said, if you're going to be a lawyer and you're going to present to a judge and I'm like, hey, dude,
Bro.
what's up, judge? I mean, it kind of reminded me of Joe Pesci, though.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
he just spoke with his,
Yes.
but that New York accent.
Is that My Cousin Vinny?
My cousin Vinny,
Yes,
yeah, it was
geez.
funny. What do you say, Utes? These two Utes.
But
But yeah, it's just,
And here's the thing I want to say with this language. And then once you come over to the States, and I have to be careful how I say this. Once you come to the States, you have to adapt to how we speak. It shouldn't be the other way around. Because language, and this is the important point that I want to make. Language is the pillar of society. Brian, you may edit this out, you may not, but if you look at one of the greatest historical stories, I'll call it historical story, the building of the Tower of Babel. That was destroyed when the language was confused. How did they stop construction of that? Confuse the language. If we can do that here, which is what Rutgers is trying to do, if we confuse the language, basically in essence, you're destroying the Constitution. Yeah. Because now if people are talking, I think it's done intentionally.
no, it absolutely.
You destroy the language, you destroy the people, their ability to communicate, their unwillingness to communicate. And then that way you can have the demise of our society.
But it's part of that segregating people again.
Right.
Instead of just having one common language and making everybody come up to that level, they're saying, oh, no, it's okay. People of color, indigenous people, go ahead and speak the way you do. We'll adapt. But I had a question. I brought this up to you because we both grew up in the 80s, the 70s and 80s. We had a big influx of people from Vietnam because they were obviously, after the war, they were trying to get away from parts of Vietnam that were just horrible. So there was a big influx. Some of the most successful people are those Vietnamese kids that didn't speak any English.
Not a lick.
They learned how to speak proper English. They weren't given special classes to say, okay, it's okay, you can speak with whatever slang you want to speak. No, they learned the language. They became very successful.
Yeah, I have my
And those are
Hispanic
people
friends.
that don't speak English.
Right. Same way I've had, like you, I've had my Hispanic friends, my Korean friends, my Vietnamese friends. They come over here, and it's kind of embarrassing. Some of them speak the language better than I do.
Oh, yeah.
But they held on to their other language. So now they
speak two
It puts
languages.
them at a huge advantage that I don't have because now they can speak two languages while I only speak one.
Right. Right. No, I know. And
I haven't said it's a damn shame yet. It's a damn shame.
And it's just this whole culture of segregation again, and it's not helpful. And I know people have good intentions, and they think, oh, but that's the big thing. But we're trying to help. It's not helpful.
helping.
That's
You're
not
not helping.
helpful.
You're not helping.
No, look at the people. It's how to become successful in this country. You have some steps that you take. You can become successful. It doesn't matter your color, your race, your religion. And we talked about that with the African immigrants that come over, are very successful. Mm-hmm. They're just as dark, sometimes darker than Cedric.
Mm-hmm. Right,
And
right.
if it had to do with the color of the skin, why are they so successful? It has nothing to do with that. It's meeting a standard for success.
Until we realized how cool and laid back he was. I mean, Brian and I both had to. I don't know if we didn't talk about it consciously, but going to visit Dr. Barkey, we had to put on our professional tone. And then in talking to him, he said some things like, "Oh, okay, it's a normal guy."
Not only that, he goes, I watch your stuff. Usually you guys are just in T-shirts and stuff, and now you guys are in collared shirts.
I think the word he used was goofy.
Yeah, goofy. Yeah, we were goofy guys in T-shirts.
And which kind of helped him out. He's like, okay, I don't have to be stuffy with these guys
Right.
and use professional jargon all the time.
Right.
And we made it professional, but there's a lot of stuff you didn't hear that didn't make the cutting room, the floor, that we just talked to like people. But we started out being professional.
Yeah, and it still was a professional interview.
Yeah, it was. It was.
All right, let's talk about that evil, racist little white guy.
Oh my goodness. we had to show you guys this clip. And one of the, and I love the comments that we get from people. One of the best comments that I get, and some people are just like amazed. Some people say, "Is this true?" Followed by like 5 or 6 question marks. And like Brian always says to me, Brian will send me stuff. I'll send him stuff with a little caption. You can't make this stuff up. And this was written by a guy named David Kaufman, who wrote in this column called The Level. And when Brian sent this to me, sometimes I'm thinking, okay, Brian, stop. You know what, dude? I don't have time to play. Come on, stop playing. Stop. But then you look at it, it's like, oh my God, this is true. I have to read this because you can look this up yourself. And I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. But David Kaufman writes this. A few months back, before COVID-19 kept us in our homes and George Floyd made us take to the streets, I was walking with a friend, her daughter, and my twin sons. My friend is white, and I'm not. Something I'd never given a second thought until we reached a crosswalk. His friend says, "Remember, honey," she said to her daughter as we waited for the light to turn green, we need to wait for the little white man to appear before we can cross the street. And this guy had a revelation all of it. He goes, I realize that white people like to exert control over nearly everything everyone does. I thought, but since when did this literally include trying to cross the street? Part of my surprise here was a function of age. My boys are a few months younger than our daughter, and we hadn't yet talked about the crossing of street. Because like we and I haven't talked about being pulled over by cops. I didn't have to talk to my kids about crossing the street.
You know?
The crossing, speechless, aren't the crossing street component of basic toddler training. But as a black dad, I was struck by the language at play. How is it possible that well into the 21st century, parents all over Manhattan, well-meaning, are teaching their children to ask little white men for permission to cross the street? And why does this seem to bother? I can't read anymore.
You know what? Here's how irrelevant it is, because me and my wife had not an argument, but a discussion about this. I thought the little guy was green, just because, green means go, and then
Right.
the red hand. We had to actually go to the crosswalk and look, and sure enough, it is white.
But is the LED line, is it white because it's easier to see?
Yeah, that's what they said. It's actually called lunar white because they said that lunar white, it's the color of the moon reflection, is supposed to be the easiest to see because you have to see it in the daylight, too.
But here's what we're going to be faced with. I just thought about this. Why is it a little man that beckons you across the street? Why can't it be a woman who tells you to cross the street? Now it's going to be a sexist thing.
I know.
You know what this reminds me of? It was funny.
We have to have it equal then. Every other corner has
right.
But then you're going to have the whole transgender thing. So.
Oh, jeez. This is a damn shame. And you guys look it up. We're not making this up. This reminds me of the movie. I don't know if you can show a clip of it without us getting in trouble.
It's racial.
Well, expand.
I bet. Now, check it out. The white ball dominates everything, right? Knocks the shit out the yellow ball, the red ball, right? And the game's over when the white ball drives the black ball completely off the table.
When does the game end? The game ends when the white ball knocks the black ball off the table, thus winning. And Eddie Murphy's character is like, this is so stupid, but I'm going to play along. He goes, oh, I get it. And the felt is green because that resembles the earth, right? He goes, oh, now you're getting it. Now you're getting it. And David Allen Greer's like, why are we doing this? You got to see that scene from Boomerang.
Which is so funny because comedy used to be comedy, and back then we knew what to laugh at. Now people are taking that stuff serious, and it's crazy.
There's going to be so many pedestrians being hit unless the right person beckons them to cross the street.
It's just
like, I'm not crossing.
I know.
The white guy. I'll wait till the brown guy says I can cross.
Yeah, I could see them having to make it. Well, here's the first thing. The reason that it's symbols, when we grew up, it actually said walk or don't walk.
Right.
But then because of this culture of making sure that people that don't speak the language don't get killed.
You better learn the damn language then.
Yeah, instead of learning our language, we thought, let's do it in symbols. So now they have the little white guy, which I guess is not going to be good. And then you have this red hand. But you know what? They could make it, other than the gender thing, just change them to green, just like the green lights. And then what are you going to say? I mean, make it a little green man. Then it can't offend anybody, right?
That's colorism.
Red and green, though. It's easy.
I'm just saying
just solve it. Solve it right there.
Colorism could come into play.
Whatever. Just solve it. Yeah. Put a little green guy. If it triggers people, like I said, I thought it was green anyways. Just in my mind, green means go. I mean, come on.
Me and Brian were talking when we were setting it for this. Now, these are things that I say like stuff like that. That's something that me and Brian were out walking about. I would say it in jest.
I know, and I'd say you're stupid.
Stupid, but we would laugh about it, thinking, "What moron, what idiot would make this an issue?" Like, well, we found one.
And it was an older man. He never thought of it, but since some white person brought it up, and it's like, that's right. Damn it, I need to be offended. God,
this is a damn shame.
So should we talk about the last thing? I know I just brought it to you today, but
oh my goodness. I thought you were making that up too. I have to. Oh my goodness! And you guys, a lot of our friends have been saying, you guys talk about more lighthearted stuff.
Lightheaded.
It's making lightheaded.
We were lightheaded the other day.
To talk about more lighthearted stuff, we can't. the media won't allow us to. If they stop printing stupid stuff, we'll stop talking about it. Go on, introduce us.
I think the crosswalk was lighthearted. Stupid.
It's stupid.
Yeah, this one I heard, and I had to bring it up to Cedric because, and this is from a Christian Review magazine too. That's what's crazy. So they were comparing the execution of George Floyd with the execution or crucifixion of Jesus Christ.
I'm not getting much for the
and the similarities.
This is beyond a damn shame. This is a Lord have mercy. Oh, Jesus come. Okay, anyway.
I'm just waiting for the, what would George do t-shirt.
What would George do?
WWGD.
Okay, so there's 4 similarities. We'll go through this really quick. Okay, so for those of you who know the story of the crucifixion, whether you believe in it or not as a historical story or you're a faith-based person like I am, it's irrelevant. But there is no similarities between George Floyd and Jesus. But they said that as Jesus was laid down and nailed to the cross, so was George Floyd as he was put to the ground. Okay, and as he was tortured and nailed to the cross, George Floyd was pinned down with the knee of Derek Chauvin was on his neck, pinning him down to the ground. Thirst.
Yeah, yes. Thirst was first.
And for those of you know the story, they put a sponge on a stick and they held it up to Jesus to wet his lips to get something to drink. And I guess that's similar. George Floyd
said he was thirsty.
Yes. So he too also thirsted.
It's chill. I get chills thinking about the similarities.
They're there. They're there. If you can't see it, something's wrong with you. And then as Jesus called out for his
Well, no, before that. When Jesus was put up, he was being laughed at and mocked.
I don't think George Floyd was being laughed at and mocked.
The article says that he was being mocked by the police. I don't remember saying but that
okay. All right, we'll go with the story.
In the Jesuit Review.
Yes. So as Jesus was being, it's hard for me to even look into this because it's just so silly and stupid. So George asked for water. He was also being mocked and he was nailed up, and George Floyd was also being mocked. But I think a lot of people surrounding George Floyd were like let him up, let him up. This is wrong.
Yeah. So again, the similarities already fall apart, but we'll just keep going with it.
And then also you take the parental figures into play. Jesus called out for his father.
Yeah. But when he said his father, he meant the heavenly
father. George called out for his mother. God. So the similarities here were 3 for 3.
Chills again.
Yep. And shortly before the last concussion, he said, George Floyd said, I'm through.
He knew he was going to die.
He knew he was going to die, and that is sad. We're not making fun of this. It was horrible.
I mean, it was a horrible thing, but I mean, we're rewriting so many things. But so he called out, and then what did Jesus say?
Well, and if you guys know the biblical account, Jesus looked up and said, "It is finished," which caused the curtain in the temple to rip in two and everything. But very similar to George Floyd, they both said similar things at the time of their death. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why George Floyd is very similar to Jesus Christ. The only problem I have is that I don't ever recall Jesus Christ having 9 accounts of going to jail or committing crime, and I don't think Jesus ever held. They didn't have guns. I know someone's going to say that. Well, Cedric, you're wrong because they didn't have guns back then. So how could? Okay, Jesus never held a spear or an axe to a pregnant woman's stomach and threatened her,
and robbed her.
And I don't think. I'm not sure Jesus was very big on drugs.
Yeah, I mean, we brought it up. I know we thought it was light just because it's so ridiculous. Whether you're religious or not, to compare it, and then we were joking around.
This is a damn shame.
We were joking around because if you saw our Nick Cannon thing, we thought, okay, when's the movie coming out? The crucifixion of George Floyd starring Nick Cannon.
Nick Cannon.
Because he was the original Israelite,
Yes.
according to.
I was I don't know what to say.
So anyway,
It's weird.
hopefully that wasn't too heavy, but we thought we'd bring it up because it's just getting ridiculous.
Right. I do want to take this time, although we love doing this little segment right here, go back a few days and check out our interview with Dr. Jeff Barkey. If you have some people out there, if you yourself are an individual who's like, I'm really concerned about this coronavirus thing and how's it affecting me, or you have family and friends like my mom who thinks I should be the boy in the plastic bubble and stay inside and never venture out, send them that video and say, hey, I want you to check this video out, see what you think. And here is a renowned doctor, 30 years?
Over 25 years,
25
he's been
years.
treating patients, and he's doing a lot of research, and he's working with other doctors like Dr. Simone Gold, who's going to be, you'll see in that video, is going to be going to Washington. So anyways, we'll let you watch that video. We won't go into it. But
Exactly.
2 days ago, watch that.
Okay. Well, hope you enjoyed today's episode. We appreciate you guys, and do stay safe out there. Although we're making fun of a lot of stuff, stay safe out there. Don't take uncalculated risks, but make sure you like, subscribe, ring the bell, and share our videos with everyone out there on social media. So until next time, I'm Cedric.
And I'm Brian. See you later.